Okay, so I just got the box in from JUBU Performance Parts over in Austria. What's very interesting is they actually honored my request to put the material declaration on the outside of the box, because I heard that the 15% tariff that we have in the US, not only do those fluctuate currently, but there's additional tariff on steel and aluminum. So thank you so much to JUBU for throwing this on the outside. I don't know if this is gonna work, but people I had asked gave me that advice. People that had also imported from JUBU and other countries. So we'll dive into this box, see how things come out. The box is a little beat up. Obviously it came overseas via pallet, but there's tons of packaging in here as of now. So excited to dig into this and see where it goes. One step at a time. All right, got her locked in. I've personally never taken off the front bumper, but we naturally have to remove the undertray that's from the factory to get all this stuff in place. This bumper is gonna have to come off because the JUBU front splitter comes with all the framework so that it can hold the weight of the downforce that it creates. But you see 3 guys hanging off it online, which is pretty cool. So my guess is, just like any other car, that we're gonna have to take off the undertray, remove the front wheels and tires, remove the wheel wells, so that we can get the bolts that clip in here. I don't know if the hood, if we can call it that, needs to come off or not. I imagine so. So this will be a bit of a mystery, but I figured why not film it? That way the next person that has to remove the front bumper will know exactly what to do. Obviously the video is going to be a little longer than normal because it's my first time doing it. So yeah, let's get to it. Hope this helps. There we go. That should do the trick. So a while back, one of the first modifications I did was got rid of the lug bolts and went with studs and nuts from Greg's Race Parts. Great company. Obviously most of you have heard of them, probably used them once or twice. And this just makes it so much easier to get the wheels on and off because now you have a guide. I would like to think they're also stronger and safer as well, but don't quote me on that. All right, so working on the undertray, I think we have about 18 8mm bolts to take out. So you'll have 18 of these, front, middle, and then back to remove this whole plate. You'll have 2 Allen head bolts on the outside of these Aero cups in front of the wheels here. And then I believe there were a couple, I can show you. I believe these plastic screws to this inner wheel well cover will also have to come off so that this can slide out of this groove and come down. So that's what I'm gonna start with. And then we'll see what happens. Each one of these will have to come out. They're plastic screws, and then there's one Allen head over here. We have mil beneath the Aero cut. Actually 2 more 8 mil beneath the Aero cut. So both Aero cups are now removed, as is the inner liner from the tray. So next we're gonna work on these 10 mils, and I'm gonna probably leave one in the center just to help hold it, and then we'll see if these have to be taken out as well. Here goes nothing. Yes, that's what we need to happen right there. Let's see if she slides forward. Oh yeah, rock shower. Rock shower. Just the way we like it. Sandwich bags are your friends. Sharpie, label everything. Okay, final tally for the front under tray. We have 4 Phillips plastic push pins, 2 4mm Allen head keys. All of these went to these Aero pucks here, except for one that was for a plastic piece on the wheel liner, how it ties in the rear. 12 10mm bolts towards the back and middle of the under tray, and then 19 8mm bolts with washers towards the front of the under tray, and then of course 2 more 8mm bolts for these pucks. Okay, next order of business is going to remove the lower section of this front wheel well. I believe there's at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say 5. Maybe I removed 6, 7 back here. So 7 plastic push pin screws, and then probably the 3 hand screws on this front cover, and I'll pull this back and see what lies beneath. There we go. Bag and tag. Bag and tag. Okay, executive decision. The whole wheel liner's coming out. I think it'll just make everything easier. And why try to rush this? Because it'll be on the lift for a little while for some other parts. I believe we pulled 7 out over here already. There's another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that need to be removed. 7, 8. And then of course there's 2 more under here, 9, 10 in addition. And then once again, probably 4mm Allen key, 2 of them. Makes no sense. Why not keep it consistent? No worries though. I do believe from the last time I removed these, this is just a cover to access what's behind it. These don't have to come out if you're removing the whole liner. So I'm gonna pull those, what I just say, 10 plus 2 Allen heads in addition to the 7. And remove that from both sides, then we'll continue forward. Okay, to sum up the front bumper removal, you have 3 10 mil here that need to be pulled out. You have a T10, tiny screw right here. It's a Torx bit. That will have to come out. You're gonna have to disconnect this wire here on both sides, and then we will have to lift the hood via the 3 screws up under the windshield, which I'll show you, because the rest of the screws to remove the bumper are exactly where most are once that hood comes up. We're gonna have to take the hood off, or at least pick it up. There are 3 bolts to lift the hood. You can see one's exposed right there. It's a T27 Torx bolt. There's another one, another plastic cover right there. You can see the grooves. And then one last one, another plastic cover at the very end of the wiper blade on the opposite side. The challenge with this, and this one's already stripped from when I got my hood wrapped, is that this area is so narrow. The best thing I found is maybe you could use either a really, really long 1/8 extension with a torque spit on the end. However, mine's too short because this part is a little too fat to really get in there without scratching up the wiper blade, and I already have a scratch on it, you'll see in a second. Or I found this long T27 torque spit with the same end as like a screwdriver. Okay, the hood's now up. Thankfully, they also allow a hood stay, if you will, whatever the heck these are called, that is clipped into the bottom here, so you can't miss that. The hole for the stay is right in the center. So we'll just have to remove 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more 8mm bolts. And then the bumper, that puppy, should be ready to come off. Okay, so we finally got the front bumper off. It's a lot easier than I initially thought. The biggest challenge on this vehicle are these clips on both sides. What I did to give myself more room was I removed this, I believe, 5mm Allen head bolt from the headlight here. And there was also a 10mm nut on the headlight here to allow the fender to flex a little bit further. And once I did that, I was able to get my hands behind the front bumper. And really the only method to separate it is to just rip it apart. I tried for 2 hours to pry gently and to do it, you know, the right way, if you will, and it would not come loose. So there's no better method than to just grab it on both sides, here and yank. Luckily, even with that method, all 4 spots on both sides are still intact. So that's my advice to you. Otherwise, it comes off quite easily. The next order of business is going to be to remove this bracketry on both sides, one of which bolts up to the oil cooler on that side, as well as this structural cross brace. At first glance, the bolts may not all seem as obvious or as apparent as you like to get to, but it also doesn't seem too difficult. The good thing is you can kind of use these new reinforced pieces as guides to determine where all the bolts into the chassis may be. So I'm gonna get to removing these items. Hopefully we can get these on, and then we can start putting together the front diffuser. So beginning with the passenger side, some of these bolts are pretty obvious. There's going to be 3 up here, so that means this pump is going to have to come off. There's also going to be 3 back in here that you're going to get to. So that means that this ductwork is going to have to come off. So all of these little plastic screws are going to have to be removed so that we can get to those 3 behind this piece. Once we do that, there were a couple that bolted into the fender, and I think that's all we'll have to remove, and this should pull out. Hopefully it's the same on the other side, but let's get to that and we'll go from there. Sometimes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those plastic screws. We're gonna have 1, 2, 3 here to remove, and that should be it. Once we get that pump off, we can get the other top screw behind here. Wire clips held it at the very top. needle nose pliers or something to pry them right out of the hole will pop this loose. So that's one down. Okay, learn from my mistakes. To replace the framework with the reinforced JUBU framework, these are gonna have to come out. Originally, I saw these bolts up with inside the frame rail itself and started disassembling this ductwork to get to the back side of these bolts. There is, I should have looked a little closer, there is maybe 3-inch gap behind here that you can slip a wrench, especially a ratchet wrench up in there, maybe a socket, but I think you're gonna have to go ratchet wrench to remove those bolts on both sides. So you will not have to remove this ductwork. You're welcome. Once the 2 inside bolts are removed on both sides, we can begin removing 1, 2, looks like 3 vertical bolts. Let's check this side. 1, 2, 3, 4 vertical bolts. So 8 in total. Hopefully, could we be so lucky? Nope. There are also 2 Allen heads that we've got to remove within the ducting here. They're looking like 3 mil, and then the tray should pop out. Well, it looks like one of these 2 Allen bolts is stripped. I've tried a Torx bit. I've tried various Allen keys. It's supposed to be 3 millimeter, excuse me. I've tried to clamp it and twist it. So we're gonna have to cut it off and replace that bolt. Sucks. That's how it goes sometimes. So I'm gonna cut a groove with the disc, and hopefully I can slip like a flathead screwdriver in there to loosen it up. We'll see what's possible, but just kind of show you what I'm working with here. This is the Allen head in question, and there's nothing to really grab onto, so I'm just going to do a vertical line and see if I can't get a flathead screwdriver in it. Give it a shot. There we go. Easy peasy. The first line didn't work, the second made it like cheese. And if I really wanted to, I could probably reuse this bolt, so not too shabby. There she goes. So this is the framework we'll be replacing with the reinforced framework. It's pretty evident. This is extremely light. I'm gonna weigh all these pieces as well, but mission accomplished. Okay, this side's gonna be slightly different because we have this cooler here that we need to ensure we don't damage. And of course the framework's slightly different because it holds the cooler. First order of business, I think, will be to remove this piece that we're reusing. And it looks like we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 millimeter bolts. Which we will be reusing. Then hopefully, because that's out, this now pops off, and it looks like it is. Let me grab the nuts that fell and we'll go on to the next step. Now, I don't know the right process of pulling this side off. I assume it's very similar, but of course we have the cooler here. I'm gonna start removing the obvious ones that are attached to the frame rails because that's what's gonna be needed for this whole assembly to come off. We're also gonna have to remove these two that have 10mm backing nuts from this bracket, and then I'll determine whether we use this bracket again or not, because it does separate. So let's start with these two, 1/8mm, 1/10mm wrench, and then we'll go with the outside and we'll figure out how to solve for holding this upright as we progress. There's gonna be one behind this hose back here. It is a soft hose, but I don't want to have to disconnect any of that if I can avoid it. I'll try a ratchet wrench, see if I can squeeze back in there and get that bolt. I think there's enough room. Probably won't be able to see it, unfortunately. Okay, so I was able to pull this aside and fit the drill around it to get that second 8mm bolt out. You could obviously remove the ones from the frame that are easily accessed and then put a wrench behind it, but I think that was good enough. So now we'll start on this side. Aha, there's one more on this side, behind the hard pipe. All right, so obviously the other side you could just pull right out. This side's a little different. I think we're gonna have to separate this piece so that we can get it out from around the cooler without damaging anything. Again, it's gonna be these here, one more up top, and there's also some on the outside of this side. I don't know if you can see those, 1, 2, and hopefully this will separate and pull right on down. Here's a fun one for you. I finally got the outer skin separated from the lower shell here. There were some vertical 8mm bolts as well. 1, 2, you can see here. I believe there's another on the other side. So I don't know how many bolts we're up to at this point. Basically any 8mm that you see tied to black framework, pull it out. I was right, this bracket can stay. It does separate in these two locations, but I personally don't see any other way without draining the system than to cut this off. So I think for me, I'm gonna cut it. I'll still save this. And remember, this is completely encased around the entire cage. So even with this cut, just enough to slide around the rubber hoses, if you did go to reinstall this bracketry, I don't think it'll hinder the support of this system at all. So I'm gonna cut it. I'm gonna disassemble this. I'm gonna weigh everything just to see what the difference is between JUBU and factory. Obviously it's gonna be adding weight because of the structural integrity and of course because of the front diffuser. But at least we'll have a good idea of where those stand. So the next thing to do is to set up this reinforced cross piece. I have the factory one to compare it to, specifically where these two holes line up to ensure it's accurate. They also give you a pretty good photo in the instructions. Originally, I had these outside pieces on the opposite side with the extra support facing inward, thinking it was for the front splitter or under tray. The photo clearly has them going out, supporting the ductwork. So that was one mistake made by me. You have these two channels here facing forward or out with the flat lip facing to the rear. So all we gotta do is screw this together and then we can get it back up on the car itself. They do provide hardware, I believe, for each part rather than reusing the old hardware. Of course, none of these cars are very old at this point, so the old hardware was in pretty good shape, but I'm gonna move forward with using these because it is brand new. And yeah, and then we'll move on to the outside framework. Here's the first pack of bolts. All of them are really, really similar in length and size, so be advised on that when you're looking through these instructions. To connect this cross member to these outside structures, if you will, we're using the M6 by 12s. There's also M6 by 16s. The length difference is marginal at best. So there's 4 of the 12s here, the short ones. Just keep an eye out for those. Those are gonna go right here through the front to connect these together on each side, and then we'll move on to the next step. The instructions say that they came with 24 M6 by 16 socket head cap screws. That's the #1 screw that you'll be using to assemble everything together. I might have received 11, maybe 12, so I clearly didn't get enough. I'm gonna have to use some of the OEM bolts because I don't feel like going out and replacing them with something else. And then whatever I don't have left, I'll just fill back in with factory hardware. That should be fine. Because they're cap screws and a little harder to get to than like the 8mm, I will probably use these on the outside of the chassis and then use the 8mm that I can easily get a wrench on the inside of the frame rails here. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna Loctite everything and we'll get this thing installed and start putting everything back together. Once you have this framework mounted with maybe these 2 outside bolts on each side, what I went back and did is I loosened these 2, connecting the cross beam to this structure here on both sides, because if it's too tight, there's too many inputs where, you know, it makes it difficult. You need some play in this to get it to sit just right. It did take me a little while, and there's just enough flexibility in this ductwork to loosen and tighten those 2 up. So now that these are all in, again, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the back side, and then 5, 6 on the frame rail. Each side 6. We're gonna have these 2 in the center. Then I believe that should be fully mounted. So I'm gonna go around and tighten all this back up, and then we're gonna work on putting the ducting in for each side as well as the frames. Let's go easy side first, because some of this has been a bit of a pain. So this is the housing for the driver's side on a US-based car. You can tell because it doesn't have the coolant pass-through on both sides, where the second cage does. So that's obviously on the passenger side. Just like uninstall, we're gonna have to reconnect these wires to clip into the frame. They have the slots for them, which I find pretty nice. Like, I feel like most aftermarket parts don't typically, you know, cut for that type stuff. It also has the holes for this bracketry on this side. And then we're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws to mount this piece all together. From there, we'll do the ductwork. And then this side should be relatively complete. I don't believe there's anything else that needs to be added. Light work, baby. Quick work, baby. So we'll have 2 more 8mm for this pump housing, 1 here and 1 up top. We want to remount this bracket. Remember, it's only a few of these had nuts on the back side. This requires 2. And then previously the ductwork had, I think, 6 plastic screws. So pretty easy on this side, self-explanatory. It's the other side that's gonna be a little more difficult. So let me get this side mounted up and then we'll check out the passenger side. The ducting slides right in. So this side I'm calling complete. Now let's start working on the difficult side. So it's gonna be very, very similar to the driver's side. 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't forget about this clamp for the hose. And then these are a little more difficult. I'll probably start on this side, 5, 6. I think there's 1 more behind it right here, 7. And then we'll see if the new one bolts right back up to this framework and go from there. The diagonal is going to go to the back of the car. And then remember, we're going to have to take off this piece here using these 4 Allen hex bolts, 5 mil. So just like the factory plate, these will not allow you to slide around this coolant hose over here. You would have to drain and flush the system, obviously remove the hose and then slide it in. Well, I'm not going to do all that. I'm going to definitely cut out this bottom. It'll be right when it's hung up, but currently left. The bottom right loop right here so that I can just wrap it. Maybe it's the lazy way out. I don't know, but I feel like it's going to be just as good. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so the cut's been made and I repainted the part just to prevent any corrosion from where I did cut. A few things to note when mounting this side, passenger side of the bracketry for the splitter. You're gonna have to reuse these 2 rubber points as well as the 2 rubber points on each side of the factory mount. We're gonna carry them over to this mount along with the outside rail like we discussed on the other side. It's easiest to remove this plate, slide it up and over the radiator, and then go back in from behind and slip this piece in and then reattach those 4 bolts. Do not mount this at the top or at all until these are in. Because of this pipe work, it's very difficult to get those through once the frame is mounted. So definitely mount this back plate to the rail before mounting the entire frame to the chassis or frame rail itself. A couple other things, there are no cutouts for the wire clips on top of this side, probably because it's so open. I did zip tie the wire on top, which you can kind of see through there. And then I just snipped the zip tie. On the front side, I carried forward the plug, and then there's a hole on each side that I just reused to plug that wire into. I don't think that's what it's meant for, but it does work. You can get to all of these bolts via your hands on this side and a ratcheting wrench. There's 3 bolts back here. This one's obviously easily accessible. And then this one, I'm able to collapse that pipe just enough to start hand tightening it before I get a long extension with 8mm socket at the end. So all in all, she's fully up, looking pretty good. Now we're gonna plug back in this ducting with 5, maybe 6 plastic screws on the front here. And then we'll figure out next steps. Ducting's up on both sides and it looks like we're fully installed at this point for the frame. So we're gonna begin test fitting the splitter itself. One thing to note is with the JUBU kit, there is no bottom to the radiator or coolant framework. If you remember, the factory one had foam right here, so everything's sealed nice and tight. Now we have a gap. I can't recall if that side was there before, but we also have one at the bottom. So this is now hanging somewhat free. It is locked in on both sides with these rubber mounts, so it can't really go anywhere. So if that's what yours looks like, that's exactly how it goes. All right, the next order of business is to unwrap the splitter here. See the quality of carbon fiber. I can tell you based on the hood behind me, it's in really good shape, high quality product, but we're gonna pull these out, test fit them to the underside of the car, and then once that's complete and we verified everything looks good, we also have some adhesive to glue these parts together. Remember, they are 2-piece. So let's see what we have wrapped up here. There you go, this is one piece uncovered. It's hard to really see the weave and everything in the video. Obviously the gloss is there. You have the gloss on the underside and the front lip, and then it's dry carbon on the parts you can't see. Honestly, kind of like that dry carbon look.
See if we can get a couple screws in it. So let's figure this out.
So this is the first test fit. I only have a couple bolts thrown in it at the moment. That's why these two centerpieces aren't matching, but it does fit one piece into the other. Probably, I don't know, for 6 to 8 inches or so all the way down. I'm just really impressed with this this splitter. I've ordered some high-end parts for other cars and they've honestly never been this good of quality. So great company, great product, very communicative. Got here when they said it would. Yeah. So we're gonna take this down, glue these two panels together, and then start putting the front end back on. Okay, next up, we're gonna apply the primer and adhesive to marry these two pieces together. The primer is gonna go on the top side of these tabs here and on the bottom side of these tabs here, because obviously it sits flush on top of this piece. And then we're gonna put the adhesive that they provided on just this top half as we lay that on and sandwich it. So it does take about 90 minutes to cure. Obviously you don't want to apply a terrible amount of adhesive because it is held in by bolts. And you don't want it squeezing out the underside, but this is just an extra measure of precaution to hold things together.
For some reason my gut did not like that. That's all right.
All right, that's that. That adhesive is super thick and broke my battery operated gun there that I used for, I think, windshield adhesive or something. But it looks like it's all on and all pressed together. Everything is in the groove exactly how it should be, all lined up. Like I said, it takes about 90 minutes to cure. So I'm probably gonna put some weight on there, some 4x4s, maybe a brick or so, just to help hold it in place. But otherwise, once it dries, we're putting the front bumper back on and we have ourselves a front diffuser, splitter, Aero, whatever you want to call it. This side, this is the driver's side on the US based car. At least the first edition that I have has no cooler up front. I've seen photos where some had dual coolers. I don't know what that's about. But because this side didn't have a cooler, these pieces just hang loose. And if you remember, it told you to use this piece from the passenger side on the passenger side JUBU part. However, the JUBU part came with a new one of these already built in. So I'm gonna reuse this just to tie this together and cinch everything up. Outside of that, this is the only part that I'm not thrilled with. Maybe once it's all, you know, the front bumper's mounted to this, it won't have anywhere to go. But currently, I could see that catching wind and just making a lot of noise. And that's like that on both sides where they hang free. I probably, you know, I would have liked to have seen some tab up off this bracket, hold this tight and bolt it down. I don't know, I'm debating whether to make something for that, but all in all, not bad. Just a few things that you would not expect from the instructions of the installation process. So check your tabs, glue the corners, check this freestanding framework and probably reuse some of your factory parts to tighten that up. And then once that's done, we'll put the front bumper on. Okay, the front bumper's on. I did have some difficulty trying to get it all fitted. What I found to be the easiest method was to kind of set this up here. Initially, I put one screw in it just to hold the front end while I came around to the sides and made some adjustments. Ultimately, that didn't work. I had to take out the screw to make this fit, and really starting at the sides was critical to get everything to line up properly. Keep an eye on these tiny tabs right here. Both of mine were bent to the point they're almost broken, because as I was shoving this in place, these were clearly bent up behind this black bracket. So just keep an eye out for that. You will need to use zip ties for your cables for the parking sensor, because those little tabs that were on the old framework I didn't pull off. I think that'll do just fine. Lastly, I am gonna zip tie this over to the left side of this bumper. That way this thing cannot flap. Outside of that, it was pretty straightforward. The same 3 screws on either side. The Torx bit up here to keep in the plastic clips. I did retighten the 2 headlight bolts. Remember, taking those off in the beginning helps to break that bumper loose. And then I also wrapped the inside of this frunk so that when you look through the hood, you don't see the blue. If your car is wrapped, the edges get a little chewed up trying to pull this out and putting it back on. So I did rewrap the edges, which kind of stinks because you'll see that line, but you know, it's not terrible. Ultimately, this car gets a little beat up anyway from the track, so I'm not overly concerned about it. So there's the front bumper. Once this is fully complete, I got to do the other side still. I guess we can bolt up the front splitter. There's the final product. The gap on the front closed significantly. I did buy some sealant here. I don't even know if I'll use it at this point because it's absolutely touching. It looks really good. Obviously incredibly durable. Just a smooth, clean product. The only thing I'm not the most fond of is, and this is just me being particular, back here it follows the body line quite nicely, and then at some point it just stops, and now the bumper's hanging over the lip versus being on the same vein as the lip. So not sure about that, but I mean, overall I love it. All right, to finish up the splitter job, we're going to reinstall these liners. It does say some trimming is required within the instructions. I'm not sure what I'll use to trim them with. Maybe just a box cutter, maybe a Dremel, maybe simple scissors. But in the instructions, it tells you exactly what needs to be trimmed. I assume we'll put them in there and then trim it out. It also gives you, and this is what's really cool about JUBU and probably part of the expense, to be quite honest, it gives you templates on how and where to trim the liner so that everything fits perfectly. Most companies don't do that. I don't think I've ever experienced that. This isn't something they probably have to do. Like, you could probably figure it out on your own, but it's just a company taking that next step and providing you with everything you need to get the job done. So let's take these out. We'll put one up, and I guess I'll show you exactly what it looks like. I was gonna raise the front suspension. I guess I can still do that with these in here. But I really don't need to do that until the next track day probably, because it just needs to come up a hair. now we know why we have to cut. If you look at the front diffuser, the wheel liner pretty much blocks all flow. So the whole idea is to get that out of the way naturally. Right is gonna be, I guess, for the US, the driver's side. It just cinches up to the control arm there. And then it shows you everything that needs to be cut at that point. So once this sits in place, which is just like that, provides you the distance or the depth, and then everything in between here, and here is cut. Okay, the first device I'm going to attempt to use is a box cutter. Should be fairly simple. Everything from this side of this bracket over is cut out. So even what's behind the plastic piece, according to this, and based on a visual and what's being blocked, that makes sense. So I'm gonna start on this side, I suppose, and see if the box cutter does the trick. Be careful not to cut yourself, obviously. I'm gonna cut this out in sections just to be safe. All right, remove that and check on this piece. Oh, in some areas it looks like it barely pierced it. See if we can just cut this straight across. And voila, super clean. Box cutter does it. So that should sit put. We're gonna tuck this piece in because I forgot to do that before. Not too shabby, looks like it was meant to be that way. That's a job done, my friend.